Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here with Dale Lolley, and we are here to crack open your questions for DKPittsburghSports.com. Dale, great to have you on the show today. We're going to start with Radio Wave, who asks us, many sports have made major rules changes in the past few years, but which sport has improved the most?
Well, I think that depends on what you consider a major change and what's the past few years. Are we talking 3 years?
Talking 5 years, 10
years? Are we talking
years?
5 years, 10, 20? To me, the biggest change made in sports in my lifetime, I think, is the addition of the three-point line.
Oh, it did make
and
it.
the shot clock in basketball, in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when you look at the three-point line in basketball,
it adds so much more. I mean, that's the reason the Warriors are the Warriors right now.
And in college basketball, it's been the great equalizer.
Yeah.
Before that, you had your quote-unquote blue bloods, and they went and they won every year because they had the better talent. Now, when you play it in a college basketball game, and you have these David versus Goliath,
like Loyola.
If a team gets hot from three-point range, that changes everything. They can win those kind of games.
Like you saw Loyola go from, or like you saw our Taylor's UMBC take out Virginia. I go shout out to Taylor Haas, our social media / all around.
But she didn't pick that game because she had any inside knowledge. she just picked it because she graduated from there.
It doesn't matter, Dale. She picked the 16 seed to be the 1 seed and was the only time in history it's been correct. Either way, I just think that was hilarious. But your point, I think you're right on there about the three-point line. That's a huge revolution in sports because it allows, it makes teams so much more dangerous. And it changed the talent. Even in the 90s of the NBA, you saw teams that were more physical, the Shaqs, the Hakeems, the Patrick Ewings. Those were the teams that were better. And you've seen that now teams have gotten used to the three-point line. Teams like the Warriors dominate basketball.
Well, and I think some of that has happened too because it's a trickle-down effect from the college game.
Right.
Because they got used to it. They got accustomed to playing with the three-point line all the way up through. And so I think it forced more of an emphasis on guard play at the college level, and therefore that's trickled down to the NBA level where you're seeing guard-dominated play.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that it takes a little bit out of me because I grew up in the 90s, and I loved seeing me. Like Patrick Ewing was my favorite player growing up. I loved watching that guy just block everybody. Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal. Like, that was when basketball was basketball, man. But I got to admit.
But those 7-footers don't grow on trees.
They do not grow on trees, as we've seen. But I do got to admit, watching Steph Curry and people like Russell Westbrook and everything that they're going around doing, that is a lot of fun these days. But I'll give my own. I'm going to talk about stuff that's going on right now. What do you think about the two major rule changes being talked about in the NFL, in about the Jesse James rule and the crown of the helmet rule, which some people are saying is the Ryan Shazier rule, which I'm kind of like, it's not really what that is, but okay.
I think they simplified the catch rule, which they needed to do. They needed to tear it down and start over with that, which they did. We'll see what happens with the crown of the helmet stuff. They're going to have a meeting on May 3rd with the owners in Atlanta, and they'll decide how much they're going to adjudicate that and how they're going to adjudicate that during the games. And we'll see then, what the major impact could be or the fallout from that could be, because they can't call it all the time. They can't call it.
If you call it at every play, you'd never finish football.
Yeah, because everybody leads with their helmet because the helmet's your head's up in front of your shoulders.
Yeah, and you have to. And if you ever tried running really fast with your head behind your shoulders, it's really dumb. So that's not how physiology works. That's why when people say, "Oh, that's a dirty hit," I'm like, you don't understand. They had to run extremely fast to get to that point, and that contact is just natural in that position. But yeah, so that's where I was thinking. I think that those changes could really change how football is played if they go through, and if they go through as people are assuming, like just straight up, crown of the helmet lowered. But of course, they tried to institute a crown of the helmet rule in the NFL. It was only called 3 times since it's been instituted. I think that they're going to realize, listen, we can't slow this game up too much because that's what's making people hate it.
Well, they pass these rules because they simply want to make it appear that they're doing something and protecting the players. Because I don't know how much you can protect a guy playing football.
Yeah.
It's a violent game. That's what the name of the game is with the sport. But you have to at least give the appearance that you are taking those kind of headshots and those kind of concussions into account when you make these rules.
Well, there you go. Thank you for the question, Radio Wave. But we'll be right back to answer another question here on the Miller Lite Q&A.
Miller Lite is the original light beer, and we'll always brew it to have more taste, with only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. Because we believe that if you compromise on taste, you can taste the compromise. Miller Lite. Hold true.
Great beer, great responsibility. 2018 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Average analysis, 12 fluid ounces. Less than 1 gram protein, 0 grams fat.
If you're one of the thousands of Western Pennsylvanians who love to get outdoors, then you need to check out this cool new website, stepoutside.org. Learn where, when, and how you can go camping, hiking, or hunting. Or take part in power sports, shooting sports, or water sports in your local community or across the country at stepoutside.org, where everything you need to know is just a click away. That's stepoutside.org.
What I want from my public accounting firm is big ideas.
But I don't want to lose the personal attention.
My company needs global capabilities.
From a firm with local ownership.
And I want to work with industry experts.
Who take the time to understand my unique challenges. And that's what sets Schneider Downs apart. Expertise for the most complex business issues. With the service you need every day. To learn how our big thinking with a personal focus can help your company, visit schneiderdowns.com.
Injured in an accident? Need assistance in preserving your business's interests? Let the attorneys at Bassey, Vreeland & Associates protect your legal rights. For over 65 years, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates has been representing the citizens and businesses of southwestern Pennsylvania. With offices strategically located in Washington and Charleroi, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can deliver results for you throughout the Pittsburgh area. Visit www.bmvlaw.com or call 724-228-7000 to see how Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can meet your legal needs. Bassey, Vreeland & Associates. We fight, we care, we win.
Welcome back to TK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here with Dale Lolley, taking your questions. This question comes from Donnie Mason, who asks, why is it that when a sports team stinks it up on a given night, like when the Penguins versus the Detroit Red Wings this past week, they all do it in unison? It seems logical that only a few guys would give poor effort at any one time, but often they somehow all come into a game ready to lay an egg. Dale, do you think there's any merit to this theory that it's an all or nothing failure?
No, I don't, and I do. All due respect to Donnie, I do take offense when I always take offense when fans say poor effort.
Yeah.
It's not the effort that's the issue. Sometimes you're just tired.
And sometimes you just have a bad day.
Yeah, you're allowed to have a bad day. We all have them at work. We all have them in our daily lives. And the only difference is that in our position, in our jobs, when we have a bad day, people see it.
Right.
When these professional
They're
athletes.
on a stage where tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions, are watching.
And a lot of times these things are, maybe you got in late the night before that, the team travel, that can play a huge, it can have a huge effect on it. I always look back on the Steeler game in London when the team got in. They played the Minnesota Vikings. It was their fourth game of the year.
Wasn't it Lamar Woodley that tried to talk at the stand the day before and was like,
Lamar Woodley, no, he was gone by then. But it was, I just remember that I was tired from the trip over. Mm-hmm. We got there. We left on Thursday night. We got there on Friday morning, and it took me 2 full days to kind of get my feet under me. And they were playing a game that day.
Yeah,
I can only imagine how tired they were, and it looked like it on the field. So, that can play a factor in that kind of thing. I look at it and say, it's not poor effort. These guys are always giving effort. It's just a matter of. Sometimes you just have a bad day, and sometimes when everybody has a bad day at the same time, you get the kind of situation that it appears to look like everybody's flat.
No, I mean, I completely agree with that. And even sometimes it's not even the bad day per se. It's sometimes a team hits you with a scheme that you weren't ready for, or was just better at something than you expected.
Yeah.
Like the Bears against the Steelers this year. Defensively they shut down the run, and Ron Roethlisberger was not making the reads as much as he should have been behind their defense. They didn't connect enough. Eli Rogers fumbled, which is one mistake he made. But then you saw the defense. They played well up until the fourth quarter, and then the dam broke loose. There's so many factors when you play these games, and this is why they're professionals. This is why these guys are paid so much money, is because they're good enough to let it happen only a few times and not be a regular occurrence, because all the mental things that go into how well you can have the best body in the world, but if you don't know how to play the game, you're going to struggle. So I'm with you, Dale. I don't necessarily buy into. I think you're the question, Donnie, but I don't buy into the notion that it's about them not giving an effort, or the coach didn't get them fired up that day. I think it's just a matter of sometimes you're just in a rough position. Like one example, I think where the Steelers overcame that. People remember when they played the Giants in New York, the weekend of the hurricane, I think it was, and
got there that day,
and they didn't. I think that they couldn't get a hotel or something like that. It was pretty crazy, but they came out and they played well, and they won that game in New York. That was I think that's an example of times where that's a typical. That's just, I think that's just as bad as London is. You don't get the normal repetition and the normal set time of it. I think those type of things just play into the psyche of a team, and there's so many things that you and I don't even know. Just like what a player does the night before a game, what they do a couple days, what they have weighing on their brain. Any number of things could come in and offset one player, let alone offset a team.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing that we often don't know, and that's why we have the media to tell us those things.
Like us. But thank you, Donnie Mason, for your question, and thank you all for listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. We cracked open some questions for you. Be sure to stay tuned to DK Sports Radio. We got the Steelers show, we got the Pirates show, we got the Pitt show, we got all these shows coming up. The Pirates started off hot this season. The Penguins are getting ready for the playoffs. It is live here on DKPittsburghSports.com. We got a lot of stuff coming up soon, but stay tuned because DK Sports Radio will have more podcasts coming your way.